And welcome back to the Correspondents on Voice of America. I'm Arcega in Washington. Well, former Secretary General of the United Nations Ban Ki-moon arrived in South Korea Thursday amid mounting expectations that he could become that country's next president. Ban was greeted by crowds of supporters at Incheon International Airport near Seoul. He would not comment on what his future plans might be, but he indicated that he may be leaning in the direction of running for South Korea's top leadership post. Ban returns to a changed political landscape in his homeland. President Park Geun-hye has been impeached by the National Assembly, and her reputation is in ruins over her alleged involvement in a multi-million-dollar influence peddling scandal. And to enlighten us now on the political challenges facing South Korea, I am joined here in Washington by VOA's Asia Now host and reporter, Steve Miller. Welcome back, Steve. And by international broadcaster Eunjung Cho from VOA's Korean service. I thank you both for joining us. A lot of stuff has happened in South Korea. Steve, how would you describe the political situation right now?
Well, right now, I would say there is a certain vacuum with Park Geun-hye undergoing impeachment proceedings in the Constitutional Court. Acting President Hwang Kyo-an is running the country, trying to keep things as the status quo. There is a mounting opposition with the Democratic Party there, trying to undo some of Park's legacies through her almost 5 years in office. But for the most part, it's running smoothly, and there's a lot of speculation as to who may run in the next presidential election, whenever that may be.
I guess all that uncertainty, all that political turmoil, and the length of time it's going to take before all this is settled down is probably a big issue for your viewers in South Korea. Is the political uncertainty having any impact on life there in Seoul, in parts of South Korea?
Right. Everyday South Koreans are more actively engaged in grassroots politics more than ever.
Is that right?
They're talking about politics all the time. They like talking about politics to begin with, but they're talking about politics, and they also participate in rallies in downtown Seoul. Those who oppose President Park, those who support President Park, hundreds of thousands of people go to the downtown Seoul area every Saturday, and it's been going on for 3 months already, and this continues. And on TV, on newspapers, it's all about the Park scandal and who the next president will be.
So the positive, yeah, go ahead.
I think you bring up a really good point, because leading up to the impeachment, we saw millions across the country come out in opposition against President Park. There were some supporters, of course, but even after the impeachment on December 9th, those rallies have continued both for and against the president. And during my 7 years of living there, usually after a definitive moment in whatever controversy there was, all of the rallies would stop after that. But here we see it continuing on.
We see them positively engaged, right? And we have the prominent name, at least the one that we know here in the West, is Ban Ki-moon, former UN Secretary General. How popular is Ban Ki-moon in South Korea?
He's one of the leading candidates for the next South Korean president. He used to be the most popular candidate, but after the whole impeachment scandal, now he became the second leading candidate, because he's considered to be linked with President Park and her political party.
So that could hurt him?
That is hurting him already.
Is that
so
right?
That's why he dropped down to the second place. And
who's in first place right now?
The first place is a liberal person. He used to be the chief of staff of a liberal president, No Mu-hyun. And this leading candidate is called Jae-in, and he used to be the leader of the main opposition party. And he's a human rights lawyer, too.
I see. When could we possibly expect an election to take place, Steve? Do we have any indication?
Well, it really depends on the outcome of the Constitutional Court. So when the Constitutional
Court... we're going too far ahead of ourselves here.
Yes and no, because there is speculation that there will be an early election. The Constitutional Court, who's conducting the impeachment hearings, has said they want to move forward as quickly as possible. Regardless of that, there is going to be an election in 2017, whether it be in December during the normal scheduled time or after the impeachment is confirmed by the Constitutional Court, remains to be seen.
So, Eunjung, I want to talk to you about President Park's legacy. I mean, what kinds of policies or programs that she has instituted might be at risk now that she's been impeached?
Right. With President Park in question, her policies and her decisions are in question too. And one of the most important is the deployment of the U.S. missile defense system THAAD. South Korea and U.S. already agreed to deploy that, but now that Park is impeached, there are from the opposition parties and all the politicians are saying maybe we shouldn't go ahead deploying that in South Korea because this is angering China. And also another issue is whether to honor the agreement with Japan on the comfort women issue. People were unhappy about this agreement to begin with, but now that President Park is in question, people are saying maybe we should just not abide by this agreement.
So Steve, why is this missile defense system all of a sudden a political hot potato? Is it just because China has...
It's not just now becoming a political hot potato. It has been one from the get-go. And China and Russia, for that matter, have made their stance against the deployment of THAAD, well known from the beginning. But where it's kind of kicking up recently is China, at least in the eyes of South Korea, has been retaliating economically against South Korea. So they have canceled K-pop performances in China. Battery makers in China haven't had their products approved. There's a halt on imports of Korean cosmetics right now. And South Korea is actually looking at possibly even filing a formal complaint against China because of what they perceive of economic retaliation.
Right. And I'm curious as well, Eunjung, how do South Koreans feel about President-elect Donald Trump? Do they have any confidence that he understands the issues facing South Koreans and obviously their neighbor to the north?
Well, it came as a surprise to everyday Koreans and also the leaders and the politicians too. They do not know much about President-elect Trump. And they also believe that President-elect Trump doesn't really know about Korea and the issues. And we can only guess from his remarks during the campaign season, but that is not ample enough to make any kind of decisions about what kind of policies and philosophy he has about the Korean Peninsula issues.
I guess the fear, Steve, with a President-elect Donald Trump is his impulse control, especially in a trigger situation like what's going on.
I don't know necessarily about that. I mean, one of the concerns, if you look back to the campaign, is that candidate Trump was saying, well, South Korea doesn't pay its fair share of U.S. Troop deployment there, and maybe we'll pull that back and make South Korea defend its own self. There was a lot of discussion back and forth. What does that mean? And even since the campaign and into this transition period, the relationship between South Korea and the United States remains strong, and Donald Trump has gone back and forth on what he really meant during that time period. So I think that's where a lot of the uncertainty lies.
Well, and because of all that political uncertainty, I'm sure I'm going to have both of you on again fairly soon. Eunjung Cho and Steve Miller, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to take another quick break right now, but when we come back, we'll take a look at some of the latest high-tech gadgets coming out of the 2017 Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. You don't want to miss that. But first, a reminder, we want to hear from you. Share your thoughts, questions, and comments on our Facebook page. The address is VOA The Correspondents. We'll be right back.